Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. It is your man, DadaLorian. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and thumbs up that video. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, I've thought about this countless times before, and I figured it was time to do a discussion about this. Because, you know, it's something, I'm sure that's a question that's gone around the Star Wars community multiple times. Like, you're kicking it with your friends, you know, your best buds, and you're talking about Star Wars, and you're like, hey, would you rather be a Jedi or a Mandalorian? And I was like, let's have a conversation about it. Let's do it. So now, before you answer and make your choice, I'd like to dive into a little history of both sides. And before we do that, I want to go over a few rules for this discussion. So here's the rules. They're pretty plain, pretty simple. There are no gray Jedi. The power of the Force and being Force sensitive isn't reserved for the Jedi. Like, that is for all living creatures in the galaxy. And that is a canon statement coming from the Star Wars book. And I quote, however, the Force does not belong to any group, even though some are much more connected to it than others. And you can only choose one. So you can only choose a Jedi or, Mandalorian. So those are the rules. So let's kick it off and start with Mandalorians. So Mandalorians are fictional people associated with the planet Mandalore in the Star Wars franchise, created by George Lucas. First conceptualized for The Empire Strikes Back as a group of white-armored super commandos, the idea developed into a single bounty hunter character named Boba Fett. Now, the Mandalorian creed was used by Mandalorians. It consisted of several rules and was the definition of what it meant to be a Mandalorian. It required Mandalorian bounty hunter Din Djarin to return Grogu to the Jedi. So that's a little history about, Mandalorians. Now, let's get into some of the groupings. Now, you have Death Watch. They're kind of like terrorists. You have the Night Owls, which is led by Bo-Katan. You have the New Mandalorians, which were pretty much like the people of Mandalore. So they weren't necessarily warriors, but those were the people that were actually born and raised on the planet of Mandalore. And that kind of all ended around, the Clone Wars time. And then number 4, you also have the Tribe, which is what Din Djarin is connected to. And then lastly, we have the Mandalorian Super Commandos. So if you guys are familiar with Darth Maul, which you should be, I'm just kidding. Everybody knows who Darth Maul is. So Maul, when he was kind of in power in the shadows, there was this thing called the Shadow Collective during the Clone Wars, and he had his pretty much kind of his own collective of Mandalorian warriors that served under him. So that gives you a little listing. When we're making this decision, you can kind of look through, and even if we went to Legends, man, and further back, I know there's still so much more that we could pull from, but I'm just going with these 5 so you can kind of pick it when you're making your decision as far as Mandalore and Mandalorians go. Now let's get into abilities. Mandalorian armor developed a legendary reputation that was feared across the galaxy and was visually distinctive with its honeycomb plate patterns and menacing T-shaped visors. The armor was made of Beskar, a metal extremely resistant to damage and malleable enough to be forged into armor. By ancient tradition, the vital part of Mandalorian culture was forging the Beskar into armor, which was carried out by Mandalorian armorers, who could also forge Beskar into other gear like whistling birds. On top of the fabled armor, Mandalorian warriors were equipped with anti-Jedi tools such as jetpacks, magnetized boots, tactical displays, and armed gauntlets. They have the flamethrowers and all that good jazz that feature weaponry and tools designed to combat the abilities of the Jedi. Some of the weaponry not only help combat, but outright mimic Jedi abilities, such as their wrist-mounted sonic repulsors that knocked objects away like a force push would. They generally favored Westar 35 blaster pistols and Z6 jetpacks, which could, project missiles. And the archetypal Mandalorian starfighter design was called the Comarch class fighter. So, little history about, that gives you info, I would say, about their abilities. Now, let's talk about the Jedi. So, the Jedi are the main protagonists of many works of the Star Wars franchise, often working symbiotically alongside the Galactic Republic and the Rebel Alliance. The mystical knightly order in the Star Wars films trained to guard peace and justice in the universe. Jedi were powerful force wielders and educators tasked to the Galactic Republic to be the guardians of peace and order in the Star Wars galaxy. They defend and protect all sapient life, never attack. The Order consisted of polymaths, teachers, philosophers, scientists, engineers, physicians, diplomats, negotiators, warriors, peacemakers. A level of diversity extends throughout the organization, composed of hundreds of different species, thousands of different worlds, and those outside of the Republic itself. When operating beyond the limits of the Republic territory, they act autonomously and make decisions with potential, to affect countless lives. They were often the first representatives of Republic, encountered by new species and nations. The Jedi moral value system viewed purity and, of thought and detachment of emotions as essential to enlightenment. And also in the Star Wars book, I want to, pause in that section right there really quick. They even go further in terms of, training up young Jedi and younglings. Like, some of them are like, if the family knows that their child is force sensitive, some will basically offer their child over to the Jedi Order at a very young age to be trained. So they don't even know their parents. They don't even know their family. And, they're just kind of drafted into the Jedi Order if it's, assumed that they are, force sensitive at a very young age. So that's something also to keep in mind, when we're thinking about the Jedi. It's that serious. It's crazy. So Jedi philosophy emphasized self-improvement through knowledge and wisdom, adherence to slave morality, and selfless service through acts of charity, citizenship, and volunteerism. This ideology is a recurring theme in the Star Wars universe. The Jedi denounce emotions as the root cause of mortal suffering. They believe fear, anger, and love cause sentient beings to lash out in conflict and impede rational action to do what is objectively correct action. The Jedi are the opposite of the Sith. Another group of Force wielders, the Sith use their passion and other strong emotions to fuel their power. Sith are dark mirrors to Jedi. Sith emphasize domination, while Jedi instead teach connecting with nature in the universe. A Jedi's traditional weapon is the lightsaber, a device which generates a blade-like plasma powered by a kyber crystal or other focusing item. The fictional organization has inspired a real-world new religious movement, Jediism. So, for me, if it was a thing like, all right, what am I going to choose? If I had to choose, and I mean, hey, it seems kind of biased of me if you're looking at my name here on social media and all my platforms. I go by the DadaLorian. So, of course, I'm going to go on the way of the Mandalorian. And what's crazy is if you would have asked me this, I want to say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was a child growing up with the original trilogy and, the prequels, I probably, of course, would have said, a Jedi, because of the way that bounty hunters were depicted back in the day. You know what I mean? They weren't necessarily the hero all the time. They weren't necessarily the guy, that always came out victorious. Because at least the ones that I grew up with, like Jango Fett and Boba Fett, I always thought, man, those guys, they just died so silly. You know what I mean? And I was, like they had cool gear, they had cool costumes, but I don't know if I would want to necessarily choose to be one of those characters if I was in that universe because of, you see how their story ended, back then. But now that was then, this is now. And a lot of that is, yes, Legends plays a big part. The Mandalorian, obviously, has shed a new light on what it means to be a Mandalorian. So, of course, I'm going to go with Mandalorian. But there's something that I do want to bring up when we think of Jedi and Mandalore. There is a character named Tar Vizsla. He was a Force-sensitive human male who was a child, and was eventually inducted into the Jedi Order, becoming the first Mandalorian to do so, according to legend. Vizsla created the Darksaber during his time as a Jedi. So when he was a child, he was, he was Mandalorian, but he was brought into the Jedi Order because he was, a Force sensitive. So he was a Force sensitive, Mandalorian, and he created the Darksaber. So I think if I had to choose, of course I would be a Mandalorian, but I would want to be Force sensitive, where I would be able to do some of the things that Jedi do, while still having the cool dope ass costume. You know what I mean? So that would be my choice if I had to choose, you know, and that's, like I said, you can only choose one, but there's this little area where it's like, yeah, and remember I mentioned the Force is not designated just for Jedi, even though they're very known for using the Force and its capabilities. The Force exists through and works through all living things. So that could also be, you know, a bounty hunter. That could also be a Mandalorian. And I think that would just be so cool to be a Force wielding, you know, Mandalorian. So that would be my choice. So let me know what you guys think. I want to hear your choices. Comment in the comments below. Let me know who you would choose to be. Would you be a Jedi? Would you be, you know, a Mandalorian bounty hunter? Or would you be a Force-wielding bounty hunter? Let me know. I would love to hear you guys' choices. And as always, like I said before, guys, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the whole DadaLorian movement here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. I got much more fun Star Wars content on the way. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Comment below. I can't wait to hear and see and discuss with you guys about your choices. So that pretty much wraps it up. And thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you guys for the next video.